Hey everyone, I am Victoria, an amazing content marketer here at Visme, and welcome to our LinkedIn series or video series called By Accident or Design. This is a snackable series that celebrates moments in business, marketing, and design, from mistakes to wins and the wows in between. And today I have a wonderful guest. I have Evan, and Evan is the co-host and social media manager for the other side of sales and also Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Rocket Science Branding. So we've got a lot to learn and a lot of questions to ask. Evan, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for the intro, and I'm doing fantastic. Just dealing with the cold, dry, miserable winter here in Illinois. It's so beautiful.
I'm right there with you with that gray, no sun, cold weather in Vancouver. Yeah,
Yeah, the
so
Canadian
beautiful.
Seattle. Yep.
Except without Grey's Anatomy, but one complaint at
That
a
might
time.
be an improvement depending on your thoughts on the show.
Okay, so my first question is what's the biggest misconception that people have about you or your brand online?
I would say that a lot of people probably think that I am less empathetic than I actually am. Just because my content is very like straight shooting, right? I love to. I'm a no BS kind of a guy when it comes to business. But so I think usually if you are on the wrong side of the political spectrum, and by that I mean like a homophobic, racist, misogynistic a hole, I mean you're probably not. You're probably gonna think that of me. So I just don't try to appease people. If anything, I'm just like I'm anti-racism, I'm pro LGBTQ, and the list goes on. And I don't do that as a way to like fight back against the others. It's more to attract my tribe, right? It's to bring in community. So people think I'm divisive intentionally, and I'm like, It's not intentional. It's just me being me because I don't want to pretend to be anything that I'm not.
And your authenticity is something that you've really built your brand on. How did you get to that journey of like, okay, this is where I'm going, this is what I stand for, and then have your career also just perfectly aligned with it? Because a lot of people separate the two. Some people don't like to talk about certain things, and some people completely fuse them together. So how did you find that formula that worked for you?
I think it comes back to when I was a kid, like a teenager. After coming out of the closet and all that other fun stuff. You realize when you're pretending to be somebody that you're not. You think that you're saving yourself from certain stress and drama and danger, and to a degree that can be true depending on your situation. But in other situations, it makes it worse for you because the people that are in your corner aren't actually in your corner. Those friendships you've created are based on lies, not on actual relationships and friendships and compatibility. So once I adopted that mindset to my personal life, everything skyrocketed and soared. My physical health, mental health, happiness, list goes on. So obviously, when I started, working, I didn't know anything other than that. So I just adopted that mindset, and I think what frustrates me is I get told like, "Oh, you're being brave for doing this or confident for doing this." I'm like, I don't know how to do anything but this, so I don't know how to take the compliment. I think I should be the norm. I think I should be the standard. So it upsets me that what I do is considered an achievement. I don't want
Mm,
praise for this. I want this to be the bare minimum for everyone.
right. And for our audience, this is authentically you talking about representing the communities that you represent and walking the walk when it comes to kind of diversity, inclusiveness, and sales all in one, you
Yeah, well,
know?
you can't be a good business leader if you don't have self awareness and a good head on your shoulders and the ability to just rally people together. And rallying people together should include as many types of people as possibly can, because that's when the best ideas come about.
Nice. And your position is involved with people. I mean, you're the vice president of sales. I would say what kind of issue or mistake did you learn from that helped you to be better at that position? Because just as you said, that was really great advice. What was one thing that also, kind of shook you up in a way that like, okay, I need to fix this or I need to address this in order to be a better leader?
I think for me, a lot of my time at Rocket Science Braiding so far has been just catching up with like the bureaucracy behind the scenes skills that come with being a VP, because if those have such a ripple effect to the front of the scene situations and impacts on other people's lives. So when you're an IC, there's so much behind the veil that you don't know is happening with the leadership team, right? So my last head of role and now as a fractional VP, I've had to learn a lot more of the behind the scenes work and how it impacts all the other people. So just having to learn to love the less fun, pretty creative, yet incredibly necessary, impactful, bureaucratic parts of the role that are just never a part of your day-to-day consideration in other titles. That's been my number one priority. If anything, I wish I could change was I just wish I went in with a little bit more of a heads up as to this is gonna be you're gonna be ripping your hair out here a little bit. So but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Even if I had the heads up, I think I still would have been like, yes, let's do it. But I just wish I was a little more mentally and emotionally prepared for it because there's been a lot of days where I'm like, oh yeah, that's great. And then I log off, I'm like, oh my God, I need 10 shots of vodka. Not that I condone using alcohol as a solution,
Right.
but that's exactly how I feel when
That's
I'm
the
done.
feeling. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the feeling. I'm pretty sure we've had a couple of those. But yeah, I feel like a lot of people think like being, this leader, having this really shiny title means that you are just shooting out orders. But as you said, there's
Mm-mm.
like an emotional, mental preparation that's required.
Yeah, if you are having a bad week in your personal life or any capacity, it is if you are like an individual contributor or even just a team lead, if you're having a bad week or a bad day and it's hard to it's hard to have that poker face and keep going, take that times 10 when you add a director or higher level job title. It cuz at least as long as you're empathetic and care cuz I would hate for anything I do to have an impact on somebody else's ability to pay their bills. Business to me is one of the most personal things in the world. I hate people say business is not personal. Business is how we afford a roof overhead. It's how we afford food on the table. It's how we afford to survive. There's nothing more personal than that, if you ask me. So
That's so
if when everything goes down in this, I have a ripple effect. If I make one wrong move, it could cost someone a job, right? So it's a tightrope. So you get better at handling that pressure with
yeah.
practice, but it's a lot, and they don't tell you that before you start.
Man, so anyone who's considering for a VP role, leadership role, just one thing to consider.
Yeah, and also no two VP roles are the same. What I do at Rocket Science Branding and what another VP of Sales or of Marketing does in another company, night and day different. So just make sure you do your homework at every single one. I'm very happy with the way Rocket Science Branding. You're a very small team, so it's not like I'm dealing with hundreds of people.
Okay, that's good. That's good. That's good. I didn't know that. Like when you say night and day, what are some of the differences that you see in, let's say, problem solving as a
Yeah.
VP? Like problem
So
solving that you do that you see others do differently.
Yeah, so for example, in some roles, some versions of the role, you're more of a delegator, right? Others, you're more of a strategist.
Mm,
Sometimes you're the doer. Sometimes you're a combination of them, and it just varies based on what we're talking about, right? Usually, the bigger the company, the less of a doer you are, right? So where I
how
currently
did you
work,
find your style? How did you find your style in all of that?
um, I think it's because I still get a kick and some joy out of doing certain things that IC does, right? Like, um, I love looking at like the data behind like social media strategies and figuring out what the next step is. So I that part of social media management I love. I am a complete addict when it comes to like numbers and data and the science behind the art of it all. I love that part of what I do. Um, I love figuring out the best schedule for everything and stuff. But contrary to popular belief, I hate the actual creation of like the pictures and like the graphics and stuff. I don't find that part fun.
Oh,
I don't like editing videos and podcasts and stuff. I love recording them. I love being in them. I love
right.
promoting them and coming up with a strategy for all that stuff. But like the not so fun parts are for me. So anyways, it's just like learning what parts of it you like. And so therefore I found out I was like, okay, so I like the strategy for most things. I like the doing for most things. Can I imagine doing just strategy and not doing? No. Why? Because I would be missing it too much. So I never want a role where I'm too far removed from the ground level. I like being on the front lines just as much as I like being the person who sits there and just thinks about what the front lines should be doing. I like both. So I like roles that allow me to do both. So that's why I like startups, because the VPs and the heads of, they get to be on the front line just as much as they get to be behind the scenes. Where if I was at a company with 200 people, I wouldn't get that.
100%. So I would ask you, what's one way that you kind of, or one advice that you would give to VPs, presidents, or even people who just have their own startups? How do they start building content partnerships and community in a way that's going to be beneficial for them?
Just you got to be doing it yourself. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just focus on that. Yeah, because it's you don't have to be great at it. You don't have to do
Mm-hmm.
it as much as people like me or other creators do it. What you have to do is just become familiar with the world you're talking to. You have to be able to speak their language, talk their talk, and maybe show that you've walked the walk. You maybe haven't ran the run, but you've walked the walk. So that way, when you talk to them, you understand like why they might be acting the way that they do. Um, I do my best to be the same person online as I am offline. Andrea Pereira, the founder of Rocket Science Branding, she was with me at SASTer. And she's like, yeah, you're not that much different than you are online versus offline. But she's like, but I can tell there's a little bit of a show you put on. Like some of the words you choose, some of the
Yeah.
mannerisms might be slightly amped up in certain capacities.
Mhm. Which is
Um,
expected on social, you know.
Exactly, right? So she's like, and then when I was doing like, she was like, oh, just having a conversation with Chris Cunningham from ClickUp. And then he pulls out the camera and wants to do like a little like on the spot interview at SaaStr. She's like, oh my God, it's a different Evan in like 2 seconds. And then when he hits done recording, you flip right back. So if you are a founder who wants to work with collaborators, you need to be able to understand like the psychology behind what we're doing, right? I am selling you a curated view to me. I give my audiences a lot of insight just to my personal life. Like everyone knows I'm gay, everyone knows I'm poly, everybody knows I have PTSD, the
Right.
list goes on, right? But some things are private, but for me, I tend to give more, right? So you have to understand why I'm saying all that. You have to understand like there's importance to that sentence and statement, and you only really ever learn that by doing it a bit yourself. So I would say just toe dip into it. You don't have to commit. You just need to at least be able to understand what we're saying.
Okay. Well, I would also want to ask, like, diversity and inclusion are two words that are thrown around a lot, right?
Yes.
What's one way that you've learned to keep your company accountable?
I think that we really focus on. So, we are operating obviously in a capitalist society, and capitalism by design comes at the cost of minimizing expenses, and that translates to people's pay. And other side of sales and rocket science branding and every company I try to work with, I make sure that we are focusing on taking care of her employees first. And also that includes some systemic changes. So creating generational wealth opportunities for people that otherwise it'd be harder to get. That's why I work with Trainio, because they help underrepresented identities, queer people, people of color, women, veterans, people with mental health issues, the list goes on, to break into tech, which, as we know, pays above average in most industries and most countries, right? And then, for example, at Rocket Science Branding, we have employees in Venezuela that we pay, like the average monthly salary there is equivalent to $5 US. They're getting paid about $100 US per month, so they're extremely well off. For context, by the way, that's not poverty wages. These people are in the top. They're in the top percentages of income in that country. They're doing very well, and making sure that they're taken care of and providing not just an opportunity to live comfortably, but an opportunity to create a nest egg and a generational wealth. So that is my mission with business. It's not just taking care of my employees; it's taking care of my
Right.
employees and their family and their community.
Right.
So
And
that's
that's why
what I
you
look
say
for.
business is personal.
Yeah, exactly. So, as a queer person, a lot of LGBTQ history has overlap or touches right up against the history of marginalized identities from race and gender and other listed common underrepresented identities. So, it goes on and on and on. And it may not even be overlapping, but it's like, oh, it's nearly the identical story, basically. It's copy and paste of a story. We've all seen 16 versions of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, right? It's the same story, but presented in
Same.
19 different ways, right? So, I leverage my empathy and sympathy and ability to relate to the pain, basically, to some degree. Never lived it, but I've had a similar flavor,
Right.
right? I use that as a motivational factor when it comes to doing business.
And I see that, well, we're gonna answer this real quick if you can. Someone just asked, I have a question. What's the best strategy for successful to be successful in marketing? And I'd say your one quick tidbit that you've been saying since you started this live.
Have fun. Have fun with it. Have a personality. Shout at the stock press, by the way. I've been talking to them. Their branding is adorable, jovial, and fun, and cute, and exciting. Like, it's a and they're a competitor of the Dropbox. Right? Like, that's a fun thing to be a competitor to, and to have your branding be something that like it looks like the graphics look like Bob's Burgers or American Dad or Family Guy. Like
Right.
the right. I'm like, I was like, what? Make business software fun and interesting. Make it like like a video game, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love the wave of good marketing in business is fun marketing. I love it when it's like high energy and fun.
All right. Okay, so I have one last question for you before we wrap
Hmm.
up, and it's a hot take that we try to ask our our guests. One is, what's the one worst advice you've ever gotten? Like, what's one of like the worst advice you've ever gotten in your career?
Ooh, that's a good one. One thing that really, I mean, I could talk about how everybody says you need a college degree to be successful in marketing. You don't.
I also don't have a degree in marketing, and I do marketing. So,
Yeah, I'm a big believer in networking is and proving that you're good at what you do in other ways is just as great. But the other thing that I would also mention is that you just the definition of professionalism isn't having a strong divide between personal and professional. You can if you want to, but that's not the definition. Professionalism is do you do what you say you're going to do, and do you do it well, and do you do it when you say you're going to do it? That's professionalism. But if you want to be sex positive and polyamorous or any part of your life, you want to be a DJ outside of work, you want to have 16 side hustles, you want to have 10 kids or -2 kids, you want to have 10
mhm.
cats, whatever, you are allowed to have that life. And if anybody at work has a problem with that, screw them. You're a human being doing consenting adult activities of other consenting adults. And that is not you being unprofessional. That is you being a human being. So yeah, screw with the old school way of business. Yeah.
And the way that people have started to embrace remote work and work culture and how things are, I think that's going to bleed into how we define professionalism. So I totally get you
Yeah.
on that.
I'm paying for output. I'm not paying for butts and seats, you know? So I don't care what you're doing outside of that.
Right. I would just wish some employers would have that mindset, but they
More and more every day. We're getting there. We're getting there. Yep.
And just one last comment I'll share. So
Oh,
Serene,
thank
keep
you.
up the good work, lots of hearts. And thank you guys so much for joining us. Evan, thank you so much for sharing everything. That was just jam packed with just so much juicy information.
Thank
So
you.
much. And guys, we'll have the recording for this session just in case you've missed some of the parts, so you can just rewatch Evan just sharing all those beautiful gems all over again. And thank you so much, Evan, for joining us at By Accident or Design, powered by Visme.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
All right, and where can we find you? Anyone who's watching this, where can they find you on LinkedIn or any other socials that you use?
You can definitely find me on LinkedIn, of course, but you can also find me on Twitter, Evan Patterson. If you search my name, I'm like one of the first that pops up on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. But I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. Also, you can find me on the other side of sales every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
All right, nice. And that the Other Sides of Sales podcast that you are the co-host of. Is that
Yes, yeah,
correct?
it's a live show on LinkedIn at 3 p.m. Eastern. We have one today, of course, and my co-host Ashley Early and Ryan Woodard. He's on parental leave. He just has this newborn baby girl, Phoenix. She is adorable, but yeah, Ashley and I we're going to be doing it, and it's loads of fun. You might even see me, have a little cocktail and some bad gay jokes later today.
Guys, if you want to hop in on the podcast, be sure to check it out, The Other Side of Sales with Evan Patterson. Thank you guys so
Thank you
much,
so much.
and have a wonderful day, everyone.